Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Dishu and you're watching Data Science with Dishu. And this is the second part of the NumPy tutorial that we have started in the last session. So make sure you check the last video before starting this session. So as we have started the series Python for Data Science, so we have first of all in the last session introduced about what is actually modules and what is libraries in Python. And then we have introduced the library, the first library that is called NumPy, and that is the short form of न्यूमेरिकल पाइथन. सो हमने लास्ट वीडियो में पूरा कवर अप किया था, लाइक व्हाट इज़ थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट पूरा कवर अप किया था, लाइक व्हाट इज़ मॉड्यूल, व्हाट इज़ लाइब्रेरी. देन वी हैव स्टार्टेड की हाउ टू इम्पोर्ट लाइब्रेरी. सो मेक श्योर यू चेक द वीडियो, यू विल गेट द कंप्लीट अंडरस्टैंडिंग अबाउट इट. And then we have also introduced that why NumPy. Like why NumPy means we have just compared the list and NumPy array, so that we can compare that NumPy array is actually much better than the list in terms of like memory, than performance, than functionality. So all of these I have just introduced in the last video. Now from this video onward we are going to start attributes of array. So as we have seen in the oops concept, like मैंने जब oops आपको पढ़ाया था, we have introduced what are attributes of any class. Like for any class, when we define a class, we have some attributes of that class. So we are going to see some of the attributes that are related to NumPy array class. So here NumPy array, that means ND array is a class, and from that class we are going to see what are the attributes we have for that class. So first of all we are going to see what is shape, then ndim, then size, then dtype and as types. So here total 5 attributes that I am introducing, but it may be that इससे ज़्यादा भी attributes हो इसके पास, but the main agenda is here to introduce the most used attributes in the array. So जब आपको ज़रूरत पड़ेगी like more attributes को, you will eventually search in the Google and you will get whatever the attributes that you want, because all the things are available on the Google. So you can just go and search, because what happens that whatever the attributes and whatever the methods and functions that I'll be introducing here, that is not practically to remember all of these functions and attributes. So it is not practically possible. So what we do, we actually hear that we see that how we can use those things. But when you require those things, you can just search on the Google and you will get all the attributes and method whatever you want. You have to just know that how we can use that. So by using it again and again, you will eventually remember that thing. So let's start with the first array attribute, that is called dot shape. So as the name suggests, what it does, that it returns the shape of any array. Shape means what? Like array dimension. And the later part is that it can be used for the resizing of array also. So let's first see how we get the dimension of an array. Then we will see that how we can use that to resize an array also. So let's say first of all I am defining a simple array. So how we define an array? You have already seen that np.array, and then the elements of the array. So whatever the array that you want, 1 dimensional, 2 dimensional or 3 dimensional, it depends on you. Let's say I'm creating a 2-dimensional array, so I'm passing those elements here, and you can see if I just print that array, it is printing 1 2 3 and 4 5 6. Now if I use dot shape attribute, so whatever the array that I have defined, so this is what, this is an array 1 is the object of array class. Now on that object, what I can do, I can just call any attribute. So let's say dot shape attribute. So if I just run that, you can see it is returning 2 3. So what does that mean, 2 3? The first value returns how many rows it has, and the second value returns how many columns it has. So you can see easily that for a 2-dimensional matrix, this is the rows. So 1 and 2, there are 2 rows. And if you see column, so 1 4 is 1 column, then 2 5 second column, and 3 6 third column. So you have 2 rows and 3 columns. That is why you are getting 2 3. Now you already know that the shape of your array is 2 3. Now what if I write array1 dot shape equals to 3 2? Now what is happening here? You already know that array1 dot shape will return the shape of the original array, that is 2 3. But you are reassigning the shape. Like पहले से उसका shape 2 3 fix है, but you are explicitly giving the shape of the array that it is 3 2. Now what will happen if I run that, and if I run again the array 1, if I just simply print that, you can see the shape of that array has been changed, and it is now having 3 columns and 2 rows instead of 2 columns and 3 rows. So that was the later part, that it was saying that it can be used to resize the array. So you can just use dot shape to get the shape of the array, and if you want to change the shape of the array, that you can also give that 3,2. But remember one thing, that you cannot always change a shape of any array to your desired shape. Like it can be only changed, like 2 cross 3 is actually 6 and 3 cross 2 is also 6. So the multiplication of the array, that the shape of the array that you are changing must be same before and after. Like if I just say, let's say I'm reshaping the array, okay, and instead of giving 3,2, if I give 4,2, let's say 4,2, what it returns, you can see that cannot reshape array of size 6 into shape 4,2, because it is not possible na? It has to use the same element, okay, it has to use the same element and create the shape that you want. So since you have only 6 element and you want that reshape the array to 4,2, 4,2 means what, 4 rows and 2 columns, so it should have actually 8 elements. But since you have only 6 elements, you cannot produce extra element and insert that into that shape. So that is why you need to remember always that the multiplication of the shape of the array that you want to change should be always same to the original one, okay. So what are the other options that I can do? I can just reshape it into 6,1, so it will actually convert that into 1D array. So let's see, I'm doing 6,1, so you can see it will give no any error, and if I just print that, you can see this is 6,1. Why? Because it has 6 rows and only 1 column. And remember that all the elements here are same as the original elements. So originally the array 1 has the elements 1, 2, 3 and 4, 5, 6. So the shape can be changed, but element should be same, and shape can be only changed if the multiplication of the shape is same as the before and the after. Cool. So that was about 2D array. Now if I want to check the shape of a 3D array, you can see I'm providing a element that will create a 3D array, and now I'm checking the shape of that array. So you can see 4, 2, 3. So why 4, 2, 3? Because you have to first check the most outer bracket. So in the most outer bracket, you can see the purple one, how many lists you have already, like this blue list, 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So total 4 rows you have. Then after that you have to go to the that blue braces, square braces, and then inside that blue one you can see how many list you have, this one yellow one and the second yellow one. So for the each of these blue square braces you have 2 lists, so that is why 2 columns in the second dimension. And in the third dimension, if you check the yellow one, yellow braces, inside each yellow braces you have 3 elements, so that is why that 3. So 4, 2, 3. So that means 4 rows, 2 columns, and in the third dimension you have 3 more layers. So here, since screen is 2D, you cannot see that into 3D, but if you want to see how it looks like, I have already shown you that this one is the 3D array, you can see. So you can easily see you have 2 layers, like this one is the 2D matrix you have, which can be considered as the first layer, and then you have the second layer behind that, which is again a 2D matrix. So that means you have 4 rows, 3 columns, and in the third dimension also you have 2 columns or rows, whatever you want to say, you can tell. So that was about 3D array, and in between I messed up that dot shape and dot reshape. So मैंने ये ध्यान नहीं दिया. Like you can see, dot shape is what actually attributes that we are actually looking at here, but dot reshape is not an attribute, it is a method. So you can see easily that you are passing some values, now parameters inside that means the argument. So when you provide any argument inside that, it becomes method instead of attribute. So attribute doesn't take any arguments here. So that is why dot reshape is the method and dot shape is the attribute. And you will notice one more thing, that dot shape is actually in place operation and dot reshape is not in place, because you can see if you just provide dot shape on original array, it is reflecting on the original array. But if you want to reshape using dot reshape method, then you have to reassign the variable so that it will be changed on the original array also. So that's the two difference between them. Next we are going to look at the ndim attribute. So ndim is what? it will just return the dimension of an array. So dimension of array is what, just 2D, 3D, 1D, whatever you have. So you can see if I just run array1 dot end name, so array1 was what we have already defined that in a 2D format, and array2, that is the array2, so we have defined that in 3D format. That is why if I just run that, it will return 3. So it will just return the dimension of any array. So if you just want to randomly check, if you are confused that what is the dimension of that array, so you can just simply apply n dot ending and it will just return the dimension of the array. Next is the dot size. So you might be confused sometimes in between dot shape and dot size, because it looks similar, but shape is just returning the how many rows and columns you have, but dot size will return the size of your array, that means how many elements you have in that array. So it will just return total number of element in array. So if you just check array1 dot size, so you can see already you have 6 element in the array1, and in array2 how many elements you have. So you can just multiply all the shapes, like 4 comma 2 into 3, it will be 24. That is why it will just return array2 dot size will return 24. Cool. So that was about dot size. Then next is the dot d type. So it will just return the data type of an array. D type means data type. So what is that mean, that data type? That means the elements, that means the elements which consist of an array. So whatever the elements you have in that array, उसके क्या डेटा टाइप है, दैट इट विल रिटर्न. सो यू कैन सी अरे वन में जो आपने डिफाइन किया था वो क्या था, इट वाज टोटली इंटीजर वैल्यूज. सो यू कैन सी 1 2 3 4 5 6 ऑल ऑफ दोज वर integer. So that is why you are getting integer as a data type. Now if I just create another array which is having instead of having integer, you have some string values. So a b c is just a string value. So inside an array you can also store any string value, but in practical sense, like it will be not of any use case. Like array is mainly used for processing, like doing calculation, multiplication or some operations. But if you provide anything instead of number, it doesn't make any sense, like you cannot process those numbers. So that is why you rarely see like using a string in array. But I am just giving an example here so that you can see how many data types you have. Like if you provide a string value, if I run that to check the data type, you can see u1. So u1 is actually like u means that u is coming because of that string, and 1 is the like length of that string. So if I just see if I just provide a b instead of a, so the maximum size is 2 na, so it will just return u2. If I just do a b c, so the maximum size is 3, so that is why it will return u3. So that is it, it will just return the data type. So अगर आप integer के जगह पे any float value that you are providing, so वो float return करेगा. For that array the data type will be float. Now what is the fifth attribute is the as type. So it is just an like it is used to change the data type of an array. So d type is used to check the data type, and as type is used to change the data type. So whatever the data type you have, let's say by mistake you have defined some numbers, and since you have defined that as an integer, and after some time you change your mind that you want to change it to float. So अगर आप integer से float में change करना चाहते हो उसको, so then you can use dot as type. So how you can use that, you can see I have defined an array that is int array, and I am providing 4 elements 1 2 3 4. So if I just print that, and if I just print the data type, you can see the first 2 print statement, that is the array we have, one dimensional array, and the int 64 is the data type we have. Now if I want to change that data type of that array, so I'm providing the another name of that changed array, so float array. And what I'm doing, int array, the original array, जो भी original array था उस पर मैंने dot as type attribute apply किया, and then I'm passing the that which data type I want to change. So instead of int, I want to change that into float 64. Now it has been changed. If I just print that, and if I just print the data type, you can see instead of 1 2 3 4 it is 1 point then 2 points, since there is no any like numbers after that point value, so it just ignore the 0. So 1 point 2 point 3 point and 4 point, and you can see the data type वो float 64 है. Cool. So that was about some of the attributes we have for the array. The next thing is that we are going to learn how to create different type of arrays, like different ways of creating the array. So there are many ways of creating an n-dimensional array. So simply you have seen one method already. We have seen using that NumPy library. You can just do np.array and then you can pass the elements. But when you are creating a large array, it is not possible to pass all the elements manually there and then create that array. So you might be using some different methods for that. So we are going to see what are the different ways of creating an n-dimensional array. So the first thing is that uninitialize. So uninitialize means that you want an array but you don't know what are the elements of that array. That means you randomly want to like create any array of any whatever the elements value you have, like you don't know, you just pass the shape of that array. That means if I, let's say I want to create an uninitialized array of an specified shape, what I will do, this is the name that I have given for that array. What I have to do, I have to call np.empty. So that means I just want array. Empty means that means I'm not giving any element values, so you can take any values of that element, and I'm passing the shape of that array. So 5,3 is the shape of that array and the data type should be int, that I am passing. So if you don't pass that data type, by default it takes a float value. So if I am passing data type is equals to int, that means it will take random integer values. So you can see if I just print that uninitialized array, it will just create an array with shape 5,3, but the results, like whatever the elements you have, that is totally random. If I just rerun that, you can see, you can observe, so some elements might be changed, so it is totally random. Okay, next you will say that okay, I want to provide some values. So instead of some random values, I want के some value map provide करूँ और उसके हिसाब से वो array create हो. So in that case, let's say you want to initialize with 0. So that means whatever the element you have in the array, you want that all elements should be 0. So let's say I am providing the zeros. Array1 is the name of that array, and what you can do, you can just call np.zeros. So it will create an array of a specified shape. So whatever the shape that you are providing, and all the elements will be 0. Now default value, as I told you, that default data type is float. So you can see initially it will create all the values in float, but if you provide d type equals to int, so in that case this one zeros array2, if I just print this one, you can see it is totally integer. So it depends on you, you want an integer value or a float value. If you want float value, you don't need to give data type, it will be by default float. Cool. So that was about zeros. Now same, you can create 1 also. So instead of 0, if you want all the elements should be 1, so in that case you can just go with the np.ones. Simply you have to just replace zeros with the ones, and you can just pass the shape which you want. So if I just print that, you can see 2,3 is the shape, and data type should be float since it is by default float. But in the next one I'm providing 5,2 and the data type is integer. So in that case you are having 5,2 shape and all the elements are integer. So that was third way of creating the array. Now coming to the fourth way, array from numerical ranges. So that is an important concept, like creating an array from numerical ranges. So that gives you freedom of creating an array of a larger size. Like you have to just give np.arrange. So this is the syntax of creating an array from numerical ranges, and it is just an combination of array and range. So range function you have already seen. So if you want to see what a range function actually do, so if I just take like for I in range 5, you have already seen that actually, but I'm again doing that. If I just print that I, what it will do, it will start taking elements from 0 up to 4. So 0 1 2 3 4, since the last element is excluded, that is why it is going up to 4. The same thing is here, it is just not range but arrange. So that means array plus range arrange. So in that case you are creating an array similar to a list, but you already know what is the difference between an array and list. So it will create the array from 0 to 4. You can just give like, so if I just run that, you can see it will create elements from 0 to 4. Now if you want to do some spacing in between, like a step size you want to give like 1 to 15, starting index, then ending index, then the step size. So you have already seen all of this thing in range function. So if I just print that, it will take element from 1 to 15 but a step size of 3. That means after taking 1 it will escape 2 elements and it will take the third element. That means after escaping 2 and 3 it will take 4, then escaping 5 and 6, then taking 7, so it will go up to 13. But after 13, if you just skip 14 and 15, you have to take 16, but you cannot go up to 16, you have to just go up to 14 only. So that is why you are getting 1, 4, 7, 10, 13. Now again a different variation of that same arrange function. So here instead of providing arrange, you can just provide a function that is called dot line space. So what it does, like it is similar to that starting and ending index and the step size, but the difference is that here you take the first starting element, then you take the again the third element, then after that again the third element. But here what is happening, you have to take starting and the ending index and you have to create like how many elements you want to provide in between. It will be like equally spaced. So as the name is given here, line space, that means the space between the two numbers will be same. So from 0 to 20, let's say you want to create 4 numbers. So what it will do, it will create 4 numbers from 0 to 20 that is equally spaced. So that means 0, 5, 10 and 15. This is the 4 elements that are equally spaced. Since the difference between them are same, that is 5. Now, so there is an extra argument that is passed here, end point equals to false. So what does that mean? So if I just change that, you will see that and you will observe that what is the difference between them. So you can see when there was false here, what it was doing, that end point equals to false, that means the last element it was not taking. It was taking 0, then 5, then 10, then 15. So it may take the last element also. But when end point equals to true, I have provided, it is taking the last element and it is dividing from 0 to 20 into 4 parts. So that is why it is 0, then 6.6, then 13.3 and then 20 point. So that means the difference between each of these spaced is what, 6.6666, like that. Cool. So I hope you have got that part also. Next, what is array from random numbers? Now what does that mean, random numbers? That means you want to create, that means you want to provide the shape of the element, but you want to take it randomly. That means the whatever the element of that array, it should be changed always. Whenever I rerun that code, it should be always changed, it should not repeat. So you can see random array I am providing, and the syntax for creating that array from random number is np.random.random and the shape that you want. So if I just print that, you can see, you can easily observe what is the element that you have, and if I rerun that, you can see that element will be changed. You can see if I just rerun that, again the element will be changed. If I just rerun that, again the element will be changed. So every time I rerun that, the elements will be changed. So you may ask, जो आपने शुरू में बताया था like uninitialized array, इसमें और उसमें क्या difference है? Like this is again creating also the same thing ना. You are providing the shape and you don't know what element you want. So but here you can see, if I just rerun that again and again, the elements will be changed but only one time. Like if I rerun that, you can see the same element is again coming. If I just rerun that, again the previous element is coming. So it is changing only 2 times. So it might happen that it will also not change every time. So the elements are random, that is true, but it might not be changed again and again if I rerun that. But here is the different case. Here the elements will be always changed, so it will not get repeated. Whenever I run that, again it will create a different element. It will be always random. Now here, if I just provide a shape, you will not be able to control that range of the numbers. That means whatever the random number that are coming, that are totally random, the range is also not set. But what you can do, if I just provide np.random.randint, that means I want all the random numbers should be only integer. So if I just provide random.random, it will create float values. If I just provide random.randint, that means it will provide random integer values. Now here you can see I'm passing three arguments here. The first element 1, then the second element 5, and the third element is the size. So what are those arguments? The first and the second argument is the starting and the ending range that you want. That means you want कि जो भी आपका element हो उस array में, that is which is creating a random array, उसमें जो range of values हो, that should be always between 1 to 5. Now 1 to 5 means what? It will start from 1 but 5 will be excluded. So that means ये 1 से 4 तक ही हुआ. So that means first of all you have concise that 1 to 5 only. That means 1 से 4 तक ही रहेगा. Again you are doing that random.randint, that means वो सिर्फ integer होगा. There will be no float value. So it will be definitely either 1, either 2, either 3 or either 4. Again the third argument is the size of that array. So that means what is the size of that array that you want. So I am passing 2, 3, 4. That means obviously it is a 3-dimensional array. So if I just print that, you can see this is the array we are getting, and you can see जो भी इसका element है that is always in between 1 to 4. So if I just change that shape into a 2D array, so you can see it is a 2D array of size 3, 4, and all the elements are between 1 to 5. So that all the elements are between 1 to 4. Now this is just a pictorial representation of whatever I have taught, like np.ones, that means all the elements should be 1, and 3 is the size of array that you are providing, that means 1-dimensional array. Then np.zeros, 1-dimensional array, all the values should be 0. np.random.random, that means again 3 only, that means 1D array, but all the elements should be random and it should be float. Now let's say instead of zeros or ones or random numbers you want to provide any specific numbers, so you can do that also. So the syntax is np.full. That means np.full means whatever the element that you are passing. Let's say first argument is the size of that array 3, 3, and the second argument is the element, that means the value of the element. So if you provide np.full, so that means the full, all the elements of that array will be only 5. So you can see if I just provide that instead of 5, if I just provide 6, all the elements of that array will be 6 only. Again that is the same thing. I have already shown you what is np.ones, data type integer I am providing. Now the motive of showing that here is that what I am doing in the next step, after providing that syntax of creating that array, that is a 2D array of size 3, 3 and data type integer, if I just multiply that with 10, that means 10.0 instead of 10, so it means that I am providing that value as a float value. So what it will do, it will multiply, since it is a constant value, it will multiply each of the elements of that array with that constant value. So since all the elements are already 1, 1, 1, 1, it will just multiply with 10.0 and it will return 10.00. So you can do that also. You can multiply with a constant number to your existing array, so it will return an array with the multiplication with the constant number to all the elements of that array. Next is what? np.identity. So if you know about identity matrix, you already know, but it is just a simple thing. So what happens in identity matrix is that the diagonal element will be 1 and all the element except the diagonal will be 0. And one thing you also need to remember that the identity matrix is always a square matrix. So that is why if I just provide a single number, even that means 5, it will not create a 1D array, it will create a 2D array of size 5 cross 5. Since you are providing np.identity, it takes that element 5 and it creates a square matrix of 5 cross 5. Similarly, if I just provide 3, it will create a 3, 3 matrix, which is identity matrix. So it is a square matrix. You can see the diagonal elements are 1, 1, 1 and except all the elements are 0. Now the last way that I am showing you to create the ND array is that creating ND array with the existing data. So what does that mean? That means you already have some data in form of like different data type, like let's say you have a data in form of list and you have some data in form of tuple. So how you can convert that into a n dimensional array? So what you can do, if you have a let's say list, let's say list 1, that means 25 and 50 and 100 are the elements of that list. What I can do, I can provide that syntax np dot as array. So it is similar to that as type attribute, inside which if you pass any data type, it will change the data type. Similarly, if you provide any list and if you provide as array, it will change that list into an array. So you can see this was what, this was actually a list, but after providing np dot as array and the list you as the argument you are passing, so you can see array 1, if you just print array 1, it is an array. So it has converted that list into an array. Similarly, if you have a tuple, let's say 9, 18 and 27 is a tuple you have, in the same way you have to just pass np dot as array and that tuple, and it will convert that tuple into a array. So this was the two simple thing, and yes, we have ended the today's session. So in the next session I'll be starting from here, like slicing 1D array. So you are already familiar with the concept of slicing. You have seen that slicing concept in list and string, so it will be quite interesting to see that slicing in arrays. So how you can extract the elements of any array that you want. So I hope you guys got whatever I've taught today, but if you have any doubt, you can just ask in the comment box, or you can join the WhatsApp community and you can ask the doubt there. I'm quite active there, so doubt will be also resolved quickly. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Milte next session mein. Till then, take care. Goodbye.